Americans are rethinking the American dream, and that means rethinking the ideal family size. A new Gallup poll showing kind of wildly different opinions now about what is the right fit. And CNN's Harry Enten joining us right now. You're seeing kind of an interesting trend here.
Yeah,
what's right? What's perfect?
What's right? What's perfect? I don't know about you, but I'm in the mood for a little Sister Sledge. We are family. Okay. With 3 children, 3 or more children is ideal for a family. I think it's so interesting to note because the trend line since the 1960s had been generally downward for thinking that you want at least three children or more in a family.
3 or more, okay.
Right. It was 67% in the 1960s. From 1980 to 2011, we were averaging 34%. But look what's happened in the 2020s. We've actually seen an upward trend. We've seen a 10-point rise from 34% to 44%, and then there's 46% who say 1 or 2 kids will make the ideal family. But I think it's just so interesting that we had this downward trend, and then all of a sudden, turns out Americans think, you know what? Having a few more kids, actually a pretty good idea.
Just rack them up is how you kind of talk about it. Yeah, there's a little bit more to it than that, Harry. I wouldn't know. How does this break down by party?
Yeah, okay, so, one of the things, we spoke about earlier this week when we were saying, college education, all of a sudden the idea that it wasn't worth your time, that there wasn't a party gap there. But here we see an expanding party gap. 3 children plus is ideal for a family. There was a party gap back in 2011, 39% of Republicans, 29% of Democrats. But look at this. The party gap has absolutely exploded on this. Now 50% of Republicans say 3 or more children is the ideal size for a family, compared to just 31% of Democrats, who are basically the same from where they were back in 2011. So all of a sudden, Republicans are starting to think that a bigger family is better, especially compared to where we were 14 years ago.
So I'm very curious what the split is then between men and women.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know that much about children, but I do know it takes 2 to tango. And so this might be a little bit of an issue.
I mean, not really.
Yeah, maybe not. 3 or more children is ideal for a family. Back in 2011, there was no gender gap. 34% male, 34% female. Look at where we are now. There's a gender gap emerging on this issue. Now, 48% of men, that's a 14-point jump from where we were 14 years ago, who say 3 or more children is ideal for a family, compared to just 37% of women. And I will note there's an even wider gap when we look at males and females under the age of 50, of course, those who are most likely to have kids at this particular point. So what we're seeing in society right now is all of a sudden men and women are having different ideas of what the ideal size for a family is. And of course, we've been dealing with declining birth rates in this country. It's going to be interesting to see if those go up. But of course, if women don't want them to go up and men do, well, that ain't going to work too well.
That is correct. But it is interesting all that would go into why you're seeing the increase. This is a very interesting kind of exploration of society right now.
It is. And I do think, again, this is a little bit part of it. I think if you look at a lot of conservative media, the idea of bigger family is getting a lot more play than we're seeing on the left side of the equation.
I gave the choice to my daughters and they said, no, thanks. We don't want another. So
you know what?
It's up to them.
Up to them.
Up to them. Coming up for us. Thanks, Harry. Thanks.